meeting. I want to introduce some of the board members here. We got Robert Guerra, Alve Real, myself, Robert Sanchez, the newest member, Dr. Joe Zavaleta, Chris Valadez, and Mayor Pat Amuada. At this time, we will have the swearing in of new board member, Dr. Joseph A. Zavaleta. And Peter and Joseph Jr. there will be doing the swearing in. If you folks can get right up here up front. Yeah, right here in front of the camera. Right there is perfect for y'all. Or wait, hold on. Let me, you guys can.
Mr. Chairman, TV members,
Why don't we move up
Mayor.
here?
It's my brother and I's honor to swear in our father tonight as a PUB board member. I know, Mr. Mayor, that you and the other commissioners had many candidates before you to consider, but I think that you chose the right person at the right time. My father, Dr. Zavaleta, is a lifelong resident of Brownsville. He started off, as many of you know, as a general practitioner who delivered babies back then. And I understand that he delivered 10,000 babies in his lifetime. And then he went off to school again and became a specialist in obstetrics and gynecology. And he had never lost political office until 2005. He's been elected to the school board, BISD, TSC. He was on the TSC board when the partnership agreement was signed, making TSC the first partnership with a university in the country, I believe. And of course, we know all the great things that the university has brought to us. And I think also his experience in the business sector. He's a very successful businessman. He's actually an entrepreneur. Back in the early 80s, he invested in a little-known commodity called cell phone interests, back when few of us had cell phones. And he invested in that. My brother knows about that story because he told it to him one day, and he looked at an article and started investing in cell phone licenses and made a lot of money investing in cell phone licenses across the country. And he also has owned television stations. He's owned them and sold them and is selling another one. But I think those experiences, the experiences that he brings as a lifelong resident of Brownsville, as a ratepayer, as someone that understands capital formation, the creation of jobs, the importance that the PUB plays in our economy, I think he understands all of those issues. He is certainly a man of the people, despite his wealth and despite his experience. And I think he will be true, Mr. Mayor, to the wishes of the City Commission. He will be true to the mandate that you were elected by. And he looked forward to working with his fellow commissioners, trustees here at the PUB.
Yep. And I'm particularly delighted to tell you today that because of his financial independence, he has no agenda other than doing what is best for the city. No decision that he makes today or makes during his term will impact him economically other than it impacts each of us as a ratepayer. Earlier this year in spring, the Brownsville Herald published a series of articles called Brownsville 2020, and one of the top issues for our city was utility rates. And I am pleased and delighted, I'm going to step back for a second from being a son to a ratepayer to know that my father is going to do what is best for the city in the long term. And so, having said all that, Dr. Joe, will you raise your right hand? I, Dr. Joseph A. Zavaleta, M.D.
I, Dr. Joseph A. Zavaleta, M.D.
do solemnly affirm
that
I will faithfully execute the duties as a member of the Public Utilities Board
of the Public Utility Board
of the City of Brownsville, Cameron County, and the great state of Texas,
And will, to the best of my ability, preserve, protect, and defend the Constitution and laws of the United States and of this state, so help me God.
Chairman, if I can say a few words,
Yes, sir.
because this commission did give me the courtesy to make the appointment by consensus, and I'm very proud to have made that appointment, because as I've said all along, a lot of change was brought to BUB for the good, even though it was difficult at first. And somebody had to pay the price, and I think Dr. Salet is one of those who paid the price, in my opinion. He wanted to bring change, and he was looking for a positive change, and he encouraged me by appointing me and asking me to work on behalf of the citizens and himself when he was on the city commission to bring transparency to PUB, lower the rates, find out what some of the issues that we should be addressing, and I think we owe a lot to him. And I know here we have strong personalities, like in any board. Dr. Z is no different from many of us, but I know he's going to work with all of us. I know his intentions are good, his heart's in the right place. Like his son said, it's not because he thinks any financial gain. I think all of us here are in the same position. We're not here for financial gain, we're here to serve. At times, the public sees that we have differences of opinion. That's okay. I mean, Dr. Joe and I spoke about this. We're going to disagree sometimes, although we're friends. That's okay. You know, we're disagreeing for the right reasons because we believe in whatever the issue may be, and we're going to hold fast to our opinions unless one can convince the other. That's called politics. So it's not personal. And please, I want everybody to understand that when you see us debating an issue, he gets passionate, I get passionate, or Al gets passionate, which is very quiet. It's hard to believe it with him. But he does. It's all in the context of trying to make things better. And Dr. Joe, I couldn't have picked a better person. Welcome aboard.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for accepting the appointment. Thank you. Okay.
Okay, ladies and gentlemen, stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. Mr. Pina Ayala will lead us to the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, please stay standing for the invocation. Lord Almighty, we pray and give thanks for another day of light. And I'm not talking about the light from electricity, but the light that begins a new day. May you guide and watch over United States Congressman Solomon Ortiz, Texas Senator Eddie Lucio Jr., Texas Representative Eddie Lucio III, Texas Representative Rene Oliveda, Cameron County Judge Carlos Coscos, Brownsville Mayor Patricio Amada, and all other elected and appointed officials to decide, judge, and lead with no obstructions from special interests. They, together with Ambassador Tony Garza, in your help, Lord, can put Brownsville, Texas where it rightfully should be. And Lord, give them all the strength to turn their cheek to offerings of personal or monetary advancement in exchange for influence or votes. Lord, for they have been the fortunate chosen ones for volunteering their time and efforts for the betterment of the citizens of their districts, county, and city to lead on behalf of all the residing citizens of the area. Lord, bless the 175,000 citizens living in Brownsville, Texas today. Please pass our never-ending love and appreciation to the Brownsville citizens who have joined you in heaven, who we all hope to join in the future in your kingdom we know as heaven. Amen.
Amen.
Okay.
Going back to the executive session, there were no votes taken in executive session. At this time, we do need a motion to authorize the...
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to move to authorize the general manager to settle pending litigation as was discussed in the executive session.
Second. Okay, motion made by Mr. Villarreal, seconded by Mr. Valadez to authorize management to settle pending litigation. All those in favor?
Aye.
All those against? Motion passes.
I also would move to authorize the general manager to purchase real estate as was discussed in executive session for the benefit of PUB.
I'll second. Motion made by Mr. Villar, seconded by Mr. Guerra, to authorize lawyer to negotiate for purchase of the land, discussed in executive session. All those in favor?
That is correct. That's
Okay, I'm sorry.
Executive purchase.
Purchase, I'm sorry, thank you, Mayor. Purchase the land. All those in favor? Aye. All those against? Motion passes. Okay, item number 2, a public hearing for the purpose of considering whether the Brownsville Public Utilities Board should adopt the new standards for smart metering and DG interconnection as added to Title I, Section 3D of the Public Utilities Regulatory Policies Act of 1978 by the Electricity Modernization Act of 2005. The purpose of this evening's public hearing is to consider whether the Brownsville Public Utilities Board should adopt the new standards for smart metering and DG interconnection as added to Title I, Section 111D of the Public Utility Regulatory Policies Act of 1978 by the Electricity Modernization Act of 2005. The Federal Energy Policy Act of 2005 contains amendments to the Public Utility Regulatory Policies Act of 1978 that require state commissions and certain non-regulated utilities to consider implementing standards dealing with 1, smart time-based metering, 2, interconnection of distributed generation, 3, net metering, 4, fuel sources, and 5, fossil fuel generation. The category of non-regulated entities includes municipality-owned utilities with annual retail sales in excess of 500 million kilowatts, which includes Brownsville Public Utilities Board. The EP Act of 2005 sets out deadlines for the determination of whether or not to adopt, with or without modification, the proposed standards. The purpose of this hearing is to consider the first 2 proposed standards, smart metering and interconnection of distributed generation. The EP Act of 2005 requires Brownsville Public Utilities Board to issue a written determination on these first 2 standards, smart metering and interconnection, on or before August 8, 2007. This evening, we will conduct a public hearing to receive public input in the consideration of whether to adopt the proposed standards for smarter metering and interconnection. At the close of the public hearing, a determination will be made on whether or not to adopt, implement these 2 proposed standards. After August 8, 2007, the interested parties will be able to obtain a copy of the written determination from the Brownsville Public Utilities Board main office. A public hearing to consider the remaining 3 proposed standards will be held at a later date, and written determinations will be issued on or before August 8, 2008. I will now introduce James McCann, who will give a presentation on smart metering and interconnection. Mr. McCann?
Mr. Chairman, members of the board, we've got 2 PowerPoint presentations to give to you tonight to give you some background information on which to base your decision. We're now on item 2 of the agenda, which is the hearing portion. No action is required here. When we get to item 3, we would ask that the board make 1 or more motions on this subject. Mr. Khalifa is going to come up and give a presentation on the smart metering.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. My presentation today to talk about the act that passed by the Congress about the smart metering. We'll explain what's a smart meter, its benefits, its concerns, and we'll finalize our recommendation. On the recommendation of PUB General Manager and CEO dated August 8, 2006, the Brownsville Public Utility Board on August 14, 2006 adopted a resolution initiating proceeding to consider and determine whether to implement the new federal standards in the Public Utility Regulatory Policy Act of 1978, amended Electricity Modernization Act of 2005, enacted by Congress in Energy Policy Act of 2005. At the end of this workshop, PUB staff will make recommendations, and the PUB board will pass a motion in order to comply with legal requirements. The wording of the act itself says that each electric utility shall offer each of its customer classes and provide individual customers, upon customer request, a time-based rate schedule under which the rate charged by the electric utility varies during different time periods and reflects the variance, if any, in the utility cost of generating and purchasing electricity at the wholesale level. The time-based rate schedule shall enable the electric consumer to manage energy use and costs through advanced metering and communication technology. Each electric utility shall provide each consumer or customer requesting a time-based rate with a time-based meter capable of enabling the utility and customer to offer and receive each rate respectively. So what is a smart meter? A smart meter is an electronic device that measures how much energy is used. However, it differs than other electromechanical meters that it can communicate this information to another device. So a smart meter is considered as an integral part in an AMI, which we call automatic meter infrastructure. The basic smart meter attributes that it can display consumption information and also measures energy consumed, quantity, and time. Smart meter, if you put it in an AMI system, it can be a two-way communication. Controls smart appliances inside the household, and we're going to get to that later on. It stores interval data and transfers it remotely. So this is basically, here's a house, and you would install the smart meter outside the house. And this smart meter can control some smart appliances inside. So you can have a smart thermostat that can control the AC. So when the fuel and energy rate goes up, maybe can shift from 75 degrees for that home to 78. Or shut off the electric heater or some other appliances, maybe dishwasher or washer and dryer. It goes from this meter through a network, and from this network it arrives to the utility, and this is software packages that you can purchase with the system in order to receive full benefit from the system. So you can have an outage management system or web view display, distribution operation, program management. You can also have billing and customer service. That's how communication would be between the house and the utility. So the meters would communicate with each other. It can go maybe to some devices we install on the wood poles that we have, or it can go through a cellular tower to the utility, or even can go through the electric substation. So there's different techniques and technology about communicating between the houses or the meters to the utility. The benefits for a full integrated AMI system, it will give you flexible billing dates. You don't have to bill on a certain date anymore. It reduces the peak demand for the whole utility, reduce the meter tampering, improve the outage management for the utility, reduce estimated bills, potential for water and gas metering. If you implemented that for the electric meters, maybe eventually you can install for water and gas. Improve efficiency of utility operation, automatic meter reading. Now you don't have to send a meter reader to the house to read the meter. You can receive this information on a daily basis or even every 15 minutes interval. Provide customer with more billing details in their bill. Also you can offer time of use pricing and prepaid billing programs. Improve distribution load management and planning. Reduce needs for generation and transmission investment for the utility. Reduce customer inconvenience. No need to unlock gates or tie up dogs anymore. Ability to remotely turn on and off electric service for apartments and condominiums. This is another device you would install to the smart meter. However, we have identified some concerns we have on the smart metering at this time. The first thing is minimum savings to the PUB customer. At our current rates of fuel and energy charge or rate is only 4 cents. Usually the utilities that we studied that implemented the smart metering, their rate will go between 3 to 9 cents. So can even triple, or some can go to 17 cents per kilowatt hour. So this is not in our case. Our case here for PUB it varies between 3 to 5 cents. So 1 cent is not much saving. Hard to quantify environmental impact on the environment by reducing the peak demand for the city. Some customers' electric bills may increase. The customer will, if you give two different rates for peak load, for peak demand hours and off-peak, if the customer does not change their behavior, they're going to end up paying more in their electric bill. Program may not be cost-effective for PUB as a utility. Also, on-site inspection will still be needed. We said we no longer have to send meter readers. However, those meter readers were acting like our inspectors for any meter tampering. So we still have to have them to inspect the meters on an interval basis. Technology also will make system cheaper in the future. So we're estimating $15 million to implement it in PUB. This might go maybe to half the price in a couple of years or 3 years from now with advancement in technology. Increase of base service rates due to the infrastructure cost, like I said, it will cost $15 million. So we'll have to increase the base service to cover these costs. Customers may not also like the utility control over their equipment, over their ACs, over their dishwasher or water heater. Also, reduction in peak demand is not critical in the state of Texas due to the current levels of generation and transmission. Utilities that implemented the smart metering system, like California or Oregon, they have a problem with their meeting their peak demand for generation and transmission. This is not the case in the state of Texas. Our PUB staff recommends from the board to not adapt the federal standards in the Public Utility Regulatory Policy Act of 1978, amended by the Electricity Modernization Act of 2005, enacted by Congress in Energy Act of 2005. Also, would recommend that the board instruct staff to install solid-state meters that are compatible with a future AMI system for meter replacements and new services. PUB, on average, they replace around 3% of their electric meters per year. So the solid-state will cost us $75 each compared to $30 that we currently pay for the electromechanical meter. So that would be a step for future implementation of the system. Doing the above will allow PUBs to meet current legal requirements, provide time to develop and enact new smart metering rates, if practical, as part of the next overall rate study. If you have any questions?
Any questions, gentlemen? Yeah, what does it cost to implement this?
We're spending $15 million to implement this system in PUB.
How much?
$15 million. We have almost 50,000 customers, estimating around $300 per customer.
And you're not going to save any money with personnel, right?
No, you would have to have these personnel to inspect the meters.
What is the sense of spending $15 million if you're not going to save any money?
I think the recommendation is not to adopt it, right?
Not to adopt it.
Oh, okay.
We had a long list of pluses, but the great negative was the cost. We expect as we move forward, as Mr. Khalif advised, that the cost will be going down. So this is item one of the two items that we wanted to talk about in the hearing. If there are no other questions, we'll move ahead with item two.
Is this tied into the next item?
Yes. This is the same agenda item, number two. The first subject was smart metering. The second subject is going to be distributed generation interconnections.
Well, I want to close the public hearing, or?
No, we're not.
Still in item two, still in the public hearing.
It's still in the public hearing.
Okay, this is going to be a very similar approach. Going to go through it rather quickly. If you have any questions, we can pick them up at the end, or you can stop me in the middle. The DG interconnection workshop developed by the Electrical Engineering Department. It also is based upon a recommendation of the general manager last year. Also, after we get done talking, we will ask the board to pass a motion in order to comply with legal requirements. Interconnection. Each electric utility shall make available upon request interconnection service to any electric consumer that the electric utility serves. For purposes of this paragraph, the term interconnection service means service to an electric consumer under which an on-site generating facility on the consumer's premises shall be connected to the local distribution facilities. And there's a long list of requirements developed by the IEEE Institute of Electrical and Electronics Engineers. Okay, the types of interconnections and distributed generation that we're talking about are depicted on the screen behind you. Basically, they're wind, solar, diesel or gas generation. All of these would have to be tied in to the electrical system. A lot of the local generators in the area will run their generators only for emergency backup. At this point, there are no private interconnections within the city. A very small interconnection that would power a wind generator, such as in the top left-hand corner is shown in the bottom right-hand corner. You've got a breaker box in your house. You've got a device that synchronizes the generator with the electrical system. Typically, these would run anywhere from $5,000 to $10,000 for a small home unit. History. U.S. Congress enacted the Public Utility Regulatory Policies Act, PURPA, in 1978. The law jump-started distributed generation. Before PURPA became a law, it was very difficult, if not impossible, for a consumer to install and operate a generating plant. Electric utilities were not obligated to connect these. Backup service was either unavailable or available at a cost intended to discourage the installation by the customer-owned generator. Electric utilities were unwilling to buy excess electricity that the customers generated, but did not need. PURPA addressed these barriers to the development of distributed generation, but only for cogeneration. So what we've got now is a proposal developed by the U.S. Congress to expand that, to make it more available. Over the last 10 years, there have been no requests for interconnection to the PUB electrical system. Inquiries have been answered by staff, and we get one or two of these a year, by advising potential interconnection customers that PUB will follow the general PURPA guidelines for interconnection. And these three steps are: the customer would make an application to the utility would investigate the plans provided by the customer, determine if there are out-of-pocket costs for which the customer would be responsible, and then upon signing a contract and paying the fees, PUB would connect the customer to the generation or transmission system. So again, over the last few years, we've had a few people call in, can I do this, can I do that? We've told them, sure, you need to follow these general steps. Benefits of an interconnection service rate. It would allow uniform rates and rules to be published and available, would put PUB on par with some utilities. Some of the utilities are mandated by this legislation to provide these rates. AEP already has rates for these. Magic Valley, I'm sure, has studied the options. However, there are some concerns. There's a massive amount of resources needed to develop rates. Typically, we spend from $50,000 to $100,000 each time we go in for rate reviews. It takes a lot of the board time, a lot of the commission time to review these and make sure that everything is right. These rates may never be used. It's kind of a dead effort if we go through all this process and, again, nobody comes forward and wants to do this. I will tell you, the utilities have a specific set of rules and procedures. Again, none of these are devastating. It's just a question of whether we would see benefit. PUB staff recommends that the board not to adopt these general federal standards from PURPA. Doing the above will allow PUB to meet the current legal requirements. All we have to do is say whether we want to do it or not. And it would allow us additional time to develop and enact interconnection rates, if they're practical, as part of the next overall rate study. So, again, we would suggest that we wait on this. If anybody comes forward in the near future, again, we can talk to them, we can go through the procedure. They will not get any less benefits. We've had, I think, one of the local developers contact us this year and asked about putting in a small wind generator. We advised him to, get us the numbers, get us the proposal, and we'd be glad to review it. And typically, there should be no problem connecting such a customer. So this is the end of the two presentations that we've given you for the review tonight. Be glad to answer any questions over in material with you.
If no questions, I'd like to move to close public hearing.
Second. Motion made by Mr. Valadez, seconded by Dr. Zavaleta to close the public hearing. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any against? Motion passes. Public hearing is closed. Thank you, Mr. McCann. Number 3, consideration and approval for the Brownsville Public Utilities Board to adopt the new standards for smart metering and DG interconnection. Mr. McCann.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, members of the board, obviously these are the two items that we just finished discussing. Staff would recommend that we not adopt them at this time, to go on record to meet legal requirements and to allow staff further time to review those and bring them back to you at a later date.
Also move.
Second. Motion made by Mr. Valadez, seconded by Dr. Zavaleta. All those in favor?
Aye.
All those against? Motion passes. Okay, now, we're going to move on to my report, which is going to include an update on the Brownsville Public Utility Board Strategic and Business Planning Project, a review of the 2007-2008 Brownsville Public Utility Board General Emergency Plan, and a report of the Brownsville Public Utility Board's participation in the annual Home Ownership Expo 2007. On Thursday, June 21st, the Brownsville Public Utility Board of Directors held their first strategic and business planning meeting. Mayor Palamuada, Al Villarreal, and I attended the meeting. Chief Executive Officer John Brusiak and Chief Financial Officer Leandro Garcia and former CAO Eddie Campirano also attended the 2-hour meeting facilitated by R.W. Beck. The purpose of the meeting was to update the board on the planning process and the progress to date, and to obtain strategy-level input from the board. We were pleased to hear that the core planning team was created to provide employee input for the Brownsville Public Utility Board strategic planning process. Most importantly, this team is made up of 22 employees from a cross-section of the utility to ensure that we obtain input from throughout the company, especially employees at the staff level. The CPT has identified the following 5 issues that Brownsville Public Utility Board must address in the future. Issue 1, a skilled and knowledgeable workforce must be attracted, developed, and retained. Issue 2, our quality, reliability, and technology must be improved and maintained in the face of growing infrastructure and business demands. Issue 3, enhanced community perception must be achieved through positive relations with customers, policymakers, and the media. Issue 4, our financial stability must be enhanced and maintained. Issue 5, we must conduct all our activities with an increased business focus and mindset. The board members present were interested and supportive of the process and the direction of the Brownsville Public Utility Board strategic and business planning process. I would encourage all the board members to attend the next board strategic planning meeting scheduled for the middle of August. In preparation of the 2007 hurricane season, the Brownsville Public Utility Board staff has updated the Brownsville Public Utility Board General Emergency Plan. Copies of the updated plan were included in the board packets. Brownsville PUB follows the plan when a state of emergency arises and a state of emergency is declared. Under the plan, when a state of emergency is declared, all necessary personnel are placed on special alert and vacations are canceled. In addition, no Brownsville PUB personnel are allowed to leave the city if they have been assigned responsibilities once an emergency alert has been declared. The plan provides the BPUB staff with guidelines and checklists for operations during an emergency. The plan also includes the duties and responsibilities of the Brownsville Public Utility Board employees during an emergency. The PUB has included the Incident Command System in its emergency operations as required by the Homeland Security Presidential Directive 5. The plan was last implemented in the summer of 2005 during Hurricane Emily. For the second year in a row, the Brownsville Public Utilities Board participated in the annual Home Ownership Expo held at the Brownsville Event Center on June 30th. This event was sponsored by the Brownsville Housing Authority, along with the Brownsville Chamber of Commerce, the Community Development Corporation of Brownsville, Cameron County Housing Authority. Information about the process of becoming homeowners is offered to Brownsville residents at this annual expo. Brownsville Public Utilities Board participated by providing energy and water conservation information to visitors to the expo. Residents were very interested in the PUB light display that shows the difference in consumption between a regular 40-watt light bulb and a 9-watt compact fluorescent bulb. Many residents stopped at the PUB table to get energy and water conservation materials. Mr. John Brusiak, the General Manager's report, please.
Okay, Mr. Chairman, members of the board, the only thing I have is the financial report and the auditor's seal. Finance.
Mr. Chairman, members of the board, my name is Leandro Garcia, the Chief Financial Officer of Brownsville PUB. I want to welcome Dr. Zavaleta, and I want to pledge our commitment to full disclosure and continuous briefings for good decision-making. We have a very dynamic finance team, and we welcome your leadership. I'll begin with going over the revenue summary here. During the month of May, net operating revenues were $15,596,998 for a total year-to-date revenues of $105,820,024. Additional revenues from other revenue sources, interest on investments, and other non-operating bring the total to $16,541,847 for May and $112,621,161. This is what we term as gross revenues for all three utilities combined: electric, water, and sewer. And based on the bond covenant, based on the restructuring from the 2005 financing plan, this is where we began to calculate the city transfer. What we do is take the gross revenue, deduct fuel and energy costs, which through May are $39,740,121. Wholesale energy expenses, and these are related to off-system sales, the $3,796,284 as of May corresponds to the $6,141,226 in wholesale revenues we achieved, as well as deducting the Southmost O&M and debt service requirements for a total of $2,848,160 as of May. These deductions are prescribed in our bond covenants to arrive at what we call adjusted gross revenues, which is the net total that we use in calculating the city transfer. The $66,236,596, we apply 10% rate to that. As of May, then the city transfer at that point is $6,623,660. And you'll see further on in our presentation as to how we get to a net City of Brownsville payment. On the O&M, on the requirements side, we did have $26,757,081 year-to-date expenses for O&M requirements. Other non-operating expenses total $1,809,532 year-to-date, for total expenses of $28,566,613. When we add in debt service obligations, for a total of $15,435,224, excluding the items mentioned above for fuel and Southmost, we do arrive at a net at the total requirements of $44,001,837. Balance available to surplus, when we take the $44,000 against the $66 adjusted gross revenues, leaves us a balance of $19,479,436. This is what we term as available to surplus. Some of it is surplus, some of it is for transfers out towards specific earmarked objectives. We'll see in a minute. we also term them as buckets, but they are budgeted transfers out. So the entire 19 million is not, in essence, surplus for appropriation at this time. Transfer to COB net of the usage. As I mentioned, the transfer for the city based on the 66 million adjusted gross revenues was 6,623,660. After we back out what the city of Brownsville uses for utility services of 2,755,323, we get to a net COB transfer of 3,868,337. What we do on a quarterly basis is we put aside the monthly calculated amounts in a fund separate from other PUB funds, and on a quarterly basis we complete the transfer to the city. This transfer happens after the quarter end, so for the quarter ending June 30th, we have completed the transfer. The balance after the city Brownsville transfer, $15,611,000, is available to PUB to fund, as adopted in our budget, several items. The first one being the operating reserve addition. The board, as part of the budget process, adopted an allocation of $1 million. This $1 million will continue to supplement what we initially began in August of 2005 with $12.5 million. We did deposit $1 million in 2006, and we'll deposit another $1 million in 2007 for a goal at year end of $14.5+ million. We have internally targeted an operating reserve addition or fund of $18 million, approximately 3 months worth of funding for catastrophic occurrences or in response to emergency needs. The next item is the operating account for fuel adjustment. We began in 2006 with a $4 million allocation to this fund, which has proven very beneficial over the past year in terms of providing supplemental funds to mitigate gas price increases. So we have utilized some of the funding out of the 2006 set aside during the summer months to maintain as low a fuel factor as we can. We currently have it at 4 cents, and we'll continue to maintain that utilizing monies from this fund. We are scheduled to accumulate another $4 million during 2007. We have accumulated $2.6 million, $2.7 million. We're carrying these out at 1/12 per month, so this reflects 8 months of the entire year. The next item we fund is capital improvement project funding. We, as part of the budget, we had $15.1 million approved for CIP funding using internal generated cash. We've accumulated $10 million, which also reflects 8 months worth of 1/12 monthly transfers. And these monies will continue to support primarily electric projects. As we move towards compiling the needs for our CIP plan for 2008, we'll consider some of these funding carryover projects, and as we in the upcoming months start briefing the board on our upcoming CIP plan. The next item is the Improvement Reserve Fund, which also was created as prescribed in the bond covenant from the 2005 refinancing plan. The plan calls for an accumulation of $15 million over a period of 5 years. We did complete our first $3 million in 2006. We're working towards accumulating our second installment of $3 million during 2007. By year end, we will have $6 million on deposit, Improvement Reserve Fund. This was intended to provide liquidity, here again in case of catastrophic events, emergency responses. We do have a capital intensive system that requires quite a bit of cash in case we do experience, as I mentioned, catastrophic events. The last bucket, the improvement fund surplus, is the overall surplus. This is the actual true surplus after meeting the requirements prescribed either through the bond covenant or adopted by the board through the budget process. Here again, the transfers that have been provided from the revenues, from the net revenues, total to $15,611,099 as of May. Quick look here at a comparison of the different components in our fund summary as compared to what we budgeted and what we experienced in 2006. As of May, we have net operating revenues of $105 million as compared to our budget of $115 million. And then in 2006, we had an actual $119 million. We are falling behind in this area primarily because of the wholesale revenues and fuel revenues. They do not, they kind of offset each other, and when we discuss the adjusted gross revenue, you'll see that we're still ahead in terms of meeting the revenue projections to cover O&M and debt service requirements. Gross revenues of $112.6 million, or $7.9 million under the budgeted $120.5 million, or 6.5%, and $12.2 million under our 2006 year-to-date, same time period. Adjusted gross revenues, talked about the $66 million, is ahead of the budgeted $64.2 million by $2 million, or 3.14%, and also ahead of the actuals through May of 2006 by $3 million. Fuel and energy cost, we have experienced decreases in cost, primarily after the acquisition of the Open Union. Through May, we have spent $39.7 million in fuel and energy costs as compared to what we had budgeted, $21.5 million, and $6.6 million under the 2006 actual, $46.3 million. On the O&M side, we continue to look for ways to achieve savings internally. Through May, we have spent $26.8 million, $2.9 million under the budgeted $29.7 million, or 9.7%, and slightly over the actual 2006 for the same time period. As mentioned, the balance to the surplus, or what's available to transfer either to PUB or COP, was $19.5 million, or 5.6 above the budgeted $13.9 million, and 2.4 above the 2006 actual, or $17.1 million. PUB has we'll receive $15.6 million of the $19.5, well over the anticipated budget of $10.3 million. COB share is $3.9 million. We're ahead here by $300,000 for the city compared to the budget of $3.6 million, and $700,000 over the actual 2006. This chart provides the contribution by utility towards the ending surpluses. Electric has contributed $15.7 million, the majority of the balance available. Water, $960,000, and wastewater, $2,790,000. A quick look here at the consumption trends here for electric. For the month of May, 103 million in kWh was provided, or was consumption. Compared to 93 million in April, so we saw a 9.9 million increase between April and May. As compared to 2006, we're pretty much on the same level, 102 million in May of 06 as compared to the 103 million May of 07. Year to date, we have distributed or our customers have consumed 770 million in kWh compared to 704 million in 2006 for a net gain or an increase of 66 million in kWh. On the water side, water is not really driven by weather. As you all know, we have experienced some wet season here and mild season. It's beginning to heat up, but during the month of April and May, consumption was well below the 2006 levels. For May of this year, we sold 546,000 gallons of water, slight increase from the 540 in April, but well under the 2006 level for 194,000 gallons, 47,000 difference or gap between 2006 and the red line and 2007 on the blue. On the wastewater side, May of 2007 is slightly higher than May of 2006, 370,000 gallons. In '06, 380,000. In '07, a 10,000 gallon difference there. We're hoping that the trend here, as well as on the water, will continue to move upward during the next few months. On the CIP side, the overall CIP spending plan for 2007 was $61.2 million. Through the month of May, we have spent and obligated a total of $20.1 million, or 32.8%, well behind the anticipated goal. If you were to just look at a 1/12 calculation, we really should have been at 67%. So we're very behind on the CIP side. Of the $20.1 million, 40% has been spent and obligated by electric, $8,065,104. And 56.5% for the combined water and wastewater of $6.8 million for water and $4.5 million for wastewater. That concludes my financial overview for the month of May. I'll be glad to answer any questions.
Any questions from the board?
Very quick question. Leandro, on the O&M expenses this year to date through May, I know that you're doing a pretty good job. You're below budget. That was the approved budget, but compared to last year, you're up a little bit, $1.5 million, and that's all on the electrical side, it seems like. Do you know, is there anything that you can tell us that represents the majority of that increase from 2006 fiscal year to the 2007?
I'm not quite sure if they're actually production costs. I know we did have to support some O&M, additional O&M for Oakland Union, but that just began in April and May. I will have to get back on that, especially as it applies to electric. Now, overall, we have experienced some additional requirements compared to 2006. It's 2006, higher insurance costs. I would have to look at the specifics.
I know.
Payroll adjustments.
It's way below budget, like $3 million below budget, but, so that's fine. It just kind of stood out on the electrical side.
Let me get you an analysis on a utility-by-utility basis and target the specific areas. But I know of some areas that have gone up, but I couldn't at this time put a dollar amount to it.
On page 25 of the check register, the last one, the canceled check, there's a check there in Cameron County for $25,000 that got canceled. Did they write another one to them? Or what happened there?
More than likely they did. This is part of the interlocal agreement with the consultant that the county had hired. I'll have to look as to what transpired there, but we did complete the payment. Let me ask Mike?
Yeah, it was actually a wire transfer.
Okay, instead of a check. Okay, so we did complete the transaction through wire, so we canceled the check.
Very good, thank you. Any other questions, board members? Okay, thank you, Leandro. At this time, we're going to move item number 16 up front. Up next, it's consideration and action on the ex officio members' voting status. Mr. Chris Valadez.
Please start, Chris. This was a campaign issue that I brought out voluntarily. And I'm also, as mayor, I'm asking to we have reactivated the Charter Review Committee. So I plan to send this to the Charter Review, where the voters will decide. But, I need to hear from y'all what y'all feel comfortable with. If y'all don't want me to vote, I will not vote if they want. If y'all would prefer us to consider expanding the board by one and the mayor vote, that would be a solution to having an even number board. Or limit me of not voting in case of some tie or something like that, or meet for quorum. If y'all want to do that, I'll abide by your wishes. So with that, I'll step out and discuss it however you want. Y'all vote, whatever you decide on.
Right.
Mr. Chairman.
You can say.
Mr. Chairman.
Yes, sir.
Mayor, with all due respect, the citizens of Brownsville, when they created the PUB, decided that the mayor would be a voting member. I believe that for this board to take a position that they don't want the mayor to be a voting member would be an abrogation of the charter that was voted by the citizens of Brownsville.
Yeah, but I don't see, I don't
think,
see where the charter says the mayor is voting. I think it's ambiguous.
Well, the thing is, if you want to vote, the discretion is yours. You can abstain, as a mayor, you can abstain from voting. That's in your discretion. But we, as a board, cannot prohibit the mayor from voting because it's in the charter. As an ex officio member, the Attorney General has issued an opinion. We've already been told by Mr. Rodriguez that we cannot prohibit the mayor from voting. He is a voting member of the board.
Well, let me ask you this, would you all like to consider expand the board by one more?
No. I think an ex officio member is a voting member, period. You want to vote, you
Well,
can vote.
I
You
think
don't want to vote?
there's several, I mean, and I certainly don't think that you should not vote. I mean, that's the way it is, it's set up right now, and in the future, like you say, you have reopened the Charter Review Committee, and that's something that you can look at by adding one or eliminating one, like state, I think the state statute says that municipally owned utilities should be made up of 5 members, one of them being the mayor. So, I mean, there's already a model there that you can, for the Charter Review Committee to look at. But that's in the future. I don't have any problem with you.
Yeah, my opinion is that the mayor is legally
That's right.
able to vote. And also, my 2 cents on the Charter Review Committee would be to increase it, by 1 or decrease it by 1, but I would prefer to increase it by 1 because this community is a really big community and it deserves a, good representation. That's my opinion.
Well, I wanted to bring you up before you, because if anybody has any problems with that, I don't mind, it doesn't bother me, because I have a little question whether the charter's clear about it or not.
so the charter makes you an ex officio member.
Why does they vote, it doesn't say no?
Well, but
The definition of ex
the
officio
definition of ex
is
officio
you are
is-
a voting member.
is that you're on the board, and unless the charter says a non-voting ex officio member, then being on the board, you're a voting member. And that's been decided by several cases and by the Attorney General's opinions, that being a member of the board, regardless of how you are, which is by being ex officio, by being mayor, you are a voting member.
Thank you.
Okay, and so it's pretty much unanimous. Mayor, we want you to vote, and the Charter Review Committee can go from there.
Well, the mayor can, it's up to the mayor. If he
Yeah,
wants to vote, that's fine. If he wants to abstain, that's.
Okay, we'll move on, thank you. And I want to recognize a few elected officials that have walked into the room. Commissioner Charlie Atkinson is here, thank you, sir. Former Port Commissioner Dan Reyna is here. And present Port Commissioner Peter Zavaleta is here. And there he is.
And Leo.
Commissioner Leo Garza is here. We thank you, commissioners, coming in. Thank you so much.
Mr. Chairman, if we could go back to the general manager's report, because I think it was not finished. The general manager wanted to give a report in Washington DC.
Okay, yes.
Would it be okay to go back to that?
Yes, we return back to the general manager's report.
As part of the general manager's report is my trip to Washington, and it's important that the citizens of Brownsville understand what we're doing here at PUB. In 1979, the idea of building a weir was introduced here, and action was taken to build a weir on the Rio Grande River to store water and make more water available to the citizens of Brownsville. It's been going on for all these years, and we have not gotten the Mexican permits. Everything's online on the American side. Having given the opportunity to serve as mayor, and the issue has come up about the wall along the Rio Grande River, which is a little controversial. I brought it to the forefront that the river could serve as a wall. So we started looking into that, and with that, we introduced a concept at a meeting here held regionally with Congressman Salmo Ortiz and Congressman David Price, who's the chairman of the Appropriations Committee of Homeland Security. And we had a meeting with them and other people that are affected along the river by this wall. And we introduced a concept that, by building the weir, it would eliminate the purpose of or the need for a physical wall. The weir will raise the level of the water up to 26, 27 feet, and it'll widen the river, which will make it much more riskier to cross, like they have been crossing. So it makes it difficult. So it serves the purpose of a wall. And it backs up the river about that height for 42 miles. It reaches all the way to Hidalgo. So the concept that I introduced was to support this as part of Homeland Security and push this in Washington. So the general manager in the city sent me over there to meet with the congressmen and senators. And I went over there, and the project was well received by Congressman Ortiz, by Congresswoman Loretta Sanchez, by Senator Cornyn, by Senator Hutchison. We talked to IBWC Commissioner Carlos Marin, the Corps of Engineers, and we talked to quite a few people about the concept of supporting this project instead of the physical wall, which is very divisive, we feel, and delicate. And I believe we're on the right track. They embraced it, and I think they're going to be pushed for it. So I think it's important the citizens to know that we are working on their behalf, not only to make this possible for more water for Brownsville, along with the desal, along with the South Fork water supply, but this puts us with a better edge over other communities to where we have an abundance of water, and it serves the purpose also of a wall, but to bring industry, big industry, like a manufacturer that requires a lot of water. We have excess water to provide and compete to bring that industry down here, so that's going to be good for the citizens of Brownsville. With that, I want to thank the manager for preparing me for the trip to Washington. He made the report very easy for me to pitch. Gave me pictures, and it was easy to sell because it sold itself. Like I said, the river's going to be backed up 42 miles. It's going to go up 26, 27 feet. It's going to widen the river. It can be patrolled with speedboats, 2-3 boats, which will require less boots on the ground. And along with sophisticated electronic equipment, I think the government will save a lot of money in the long run. And that money, we pitched also that the savings could be applied to reinforcing the levees. If they're going to save money on building this physical wall, they could provide the funding to help us reinforce the levees, which are in dire need of building. So that's part of the manager's report. Thank you for sending it.
I think one thing just to mention that we have received $19.5 million of congressional appropriations in the bank towards this project. The city EPA earmarked for Brownsville, and we're almost over that hump to finish this thing. And we're hopefully with the mayor and board support we can wrap it up here in the next couple of years.
And if I might add, we made it a priority as part of my administration. We're always sitting in meetings with Victoria, governor, to get him on board, Tamaulipas governor to help us also with CELA, the counterpart of IBWC. So we're going to make it a priority to get this done, and with everybody's help, we can get it done. Thank you.
It would be kind of nice to get a update from the consultant or something that's...
Doing very little. We are doing some work for meetings with IBWC. Most all those costs are refundable through the grants, so we're really not outlaying. We do have a lawyer that helps us with the permitting.
Well, we got a written report from our Mexican consultant, and that's the one that I
That's
think
the one you'd like
we
to
like.
see.
I think
What do you get with this month, Ron?
I got one, but I think that and it was the email, and I think that should be shared with the
Okay.
public.
Maybe have them come in and make a presentation
Sure,
on the
that would be
progress
better.
next meeting.
Well, we're online to set the meeting with the governor of Tamaulipas, and with CELA, and
Very good, gentlemen. Item number 6, audience with Mr. Mariano Ayala.
Mr. Chairman, Honorable Mayor, fellow board members, congratulations, Dr. Zavaleta, general public. My name is Mariano Bin Ayala. I am here because I was touched a few weeks ago reading an article in the Brownsville Herald about two local boxers that went to Colorado Springs to try out for the Olympic team, and they came short. And the thing that was touching is the fact that they went up there and their coach wasn't with them. Dr. Zavaleta used to be a tremendous boxer. You'll understand where I'm coming from. I was a boxer. You can tell by my face that it's kind of hard to fight or box, but can you imagine how hard it is without the guy that's been training you for the last 8 years in your corner? And you know what? The thing that inspired me is they did not use that as an excuse. They said, we went up there, we lost. Well, Sergio Perales, Jerry Guevara was one of them. Sergio Perales was the other young man. He had earned enough points to have one more opportunity to make the Olympic team. The Olympic team. We're talking about putting Browns on the map. We have a golden opportunity to put Browns on the map via the Olympic team. Sergio Perales has the opportunity to go to Houston, not Florida. 3 weeks ago, they had told him Florida. He's going to Houston, and what I want to do as a concerned citizen, I'm not representing Brownsville Doctors Hospital, I'm here as a concerned citizen, that I think that PUB, and I'm approaching PUB, which was a gold sponsor when the International Junior Olympics started a few years ago. The gold sponsors, those are the people I'm approaching. PUB was one of them, and I can only say that because you all donated $25,000. I'm not going to ask you for $25,000. I'm going to ask 3 entities to please pitch in $500 to send Robert and Sergio, Robert Campos, his coach, and Sergio Perales to Houston, Texas, between August the 20th and 26th for the Olympic tryouts. And the cost came out to $1,500. We're talking room, board, and gasoline for a week. And who am I talking about? I'm talking about a young man that started boxing at the Boys and Girls Club of Brownsville a few years ago when he was 11. And this is what he has accomplished. Games of Texas champion, 2000 National Junior Olympics Golden Gloves silver medalist, 2001 State Silver Gloves champion, 2002 State Junior Olympics champion, 2002 National Black Gloves champions, 2003 State Junior Olympics silver medalist, 2003 National Junior Olympics champion, 2004 State Junior Olympics champion, 2004 National Junior Olympics champion, 2004 International Junior Olympics silver medalist, 2004 International Pan American champion, 2005 State Golden Gloves champion, 2005 National Golden Gloves silver medalist, 2006 State Golden Gloves champion, 2006 National Golden Gloves bronze medalist, 2007 State Golden Gloves champion, 2007 Western Tryouts national champion. This young man is dedicated. He bought into a dream 4 years ago that PUB was part of. He has an opportunity to live that dream. But it was kind of sad to see that he went without his coach. I'm asking PUB to please help complete the dream. I'm asking you to please help fund this young man. And here's the other thing. He did not approach me. No one approached me. I'm doing this on my own because I think it's only important that if we as a community start something for kids, we need to make sure that it comes to a conclusion. So may I present to you a champion, not only in boxing, but a true champion in all ways and manners. And I'm asking him just to hold his 2004 Junior Olympics Outstanding Boxer belt, Sergio Perales. Sergio.
Wow.
Sergio graduated from Los Fresnos High School. He attended Brownsville High and they moved to Los Fresnos. He was part of the team here in Brownsville. Even though he moved to Los Fresnos, he is called from Brownsville, Texas when he's introduced. He's not from Los Fresnos, he's from Brownsville. So he fought for us here locally. He represents the whole community. And I'm just asking PUB to please contribute a little bit so we can help this young man realize the dream and make sure that On the Border by the Sea, Brownsville, Texas is known internationally. Thank you very much.
I thank Brownsville for I get a lot of support from home, so and that helps a lot. So I just want to say thank you to everybody.
Thank you very much, and any help will be appreciated.
Well, at this moment, we can't make a decision on funding that. If the board would like, we can put it on the next meeting's agenda for consideration, but that will be claimed.
We can do it right now. We always put a $100. I saw
Huh?
I mean, I think the manager, you have a budget for marketing
You
and
can't, the
advertising.
PUB can't, but I can tell you this, that, Mr. Chairman, it's not on the action item for the PUB, but
Right.
I will undertake to raise the $500 on behalf of the PUB, and I'll ask each one of you to donate some, and we'll make sure that,
That's what I would like to say, Mr. Bean, Ayala, there's a lot of good causes, and this is a great cause right here. But, a while back, we did away with sponsorship, and this organization was spending over $130,000 or over $150,000 in sponsorship, be it golf tournaments, a lot of good, good causes, and every cause is good. But, I don't think we could go back that, but I commit myself to helping raise some money for this kid and going out there, and I'm sure the rest of the board will too, so you can count on us for $500.
We got a chairman already.
Not as a PUB. I think the attorney's gonna put in $400 and we'll put in $100 over here.
we'll get you the $500.
We'll get you the money.
Well, I just want to say, to me, what you all are just doing is an indication of where Brownsville is going. Because although you're telling me that the entity itself could not do it, but to each and every one of you to step forward and say that I will help is a true indication of where Brownsville is going with this type of leadership. And I commend every one of you, and you make me feel excited that I'm part of Brownsville. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Okay, we're gonna now move to item number 7, Greater Brownsville Incentives Corporation, presentation by Mr. Jose Herrera, the president of GBEC. Mr. Jose Herrera.
Chairman Sanchez, Honorable Mayor, Mr. Valadez, Dr. Joe, welcome back in action. Arre Real and Mr. Guerra, thank you for having me and giving me an opportunity to address you all. With the intention, well, first of all, I want to say that Mariano, I personally will donate $200 to the gentleman's cause.
Oh, thanks.
Okay, with keeping with our, again, my name is Jose Herrera, I'm the chairman of the Greater Brownsville Incentive Corporation. Keeping with our intention of having different boards express what they're doing and communicate what we're doing, so basically the right hand knows what the left hand is doing. I took the initiative along with Chairman Sanchez to come in and address you all and kind of give you an idea of what we're doing at the BDC. People indicate that our job is to create jobs and bring in industry. Fact of the matter is that we need a lot of help, and the big part of it is obviously our utilities and the PUB from Brownsville. We're going to be talking about several different items. Got a little ahead of myself. First of all, there's 5 members on the GBIC board. I'm the chairman. Got Norma Harrison, vice chairman, Ruben Galleto, secretary, Mr. Bill Connors, and Mr. Wadwani. We oversee expenditures of 4A quarter-cent sales tax revenue. We contract with the Brownsville Economic Development Council to market our region outside and bring in investment developers and for the GBIC to consider. Since 1990, GBIC has been active since 1992. At that time and to the present, at that time, there was, the first year of 1992, it received approximately 2.2 million in revenues, which continued to increase during the years until 2002, when it was voted to separate 4A into the tax incentive into two different parts, 4A and 4B. 2003, 4A was solely, it was initiated by itself, and 4B has a different entity. If you notice, at that time, even in 2003, we went back to about 2.9 million, and in 4 or 5 years now, we're basically up to about the same amount that we were in 2004 when it was separated, divided into 4A and 4B. 2006, there was 3.7 million collected that have been used by 4A. This is kind of the percentages and how the revenues have been expended since 1992 to 2007. GBIC expenditures and administration and legal fees have been approximately 3.6%. BEDC operational budget has been about 16.4%. Project expenditures about 58.1%, and the present fund balance about 21.8% of the total revenues collected since 1992. Out of that money, since 1992, the company's projects have accounted for about 55, almost 56% of the total amount of money collected. UTB, TSC accounted about 20%. Quality of life projects, which are about Gladys Porter Zoo, the Palo Alto, Dean Porter Park, has been about 12.2%. And the citizen projects with the city of Brownsville accounted for approximately 11.7%. During the past few years, we have made some changes to the structure of how the BEDC GBIC operate. There's now an actual budget that has been formed, when in previous years there was not a budget. This is how it's kind of is broken down. 2% goes to GBIC administration, 2% goes to local council. The BEDC operational budget is about 18%. We have a 9% allocated to consulting and marketing, and projects expenditures are broken down into 4 different categories. 32% going for the company incentive projects, 14% for targeted infrastructure projects, and there's a 14% as we call a large project reserve that we're trying to accumulate and grow for that 1 or 2 or 3 big projects that eventually will come to Brownsville and will be able to participate. The final 9% is for community-based projects. We have some guidelines set aside. We no longer give our money just to anybody coming into town. We have set up guidelines that there is the potential client has to pay at least a minimum of $9 an hour, where before, if they paid minimum wage, we were willing to, we would welcome them and, giving the money out without any accountability. By 2008, we hope to, we have going to change that the company or clients, potential clients have to be paying a minimum of $10 an hour. We're trying to raise the wage of our citizens, trying to keep professionals in town and even technicians so that they don't have to move to Houston, Dallas, San Antonio to get a bed-paying job. Everything is performance-based. We no longer pay anybody or give money to anybody up front. They have to actually come in. They give us a breakdown of what they're going to do per year, and based on that is what we incentivize these companies. Incentives normally average about $2,500 per job created over a period of 3 to 5 years. Again, each quarter we audit, and during the course of the year we make a determination whether they're on track or not, and at the end of the year the money is allocated. Other determining factors to incentivize is the amount of money that the companies are going to invest in our area, own versus lease, whether it's in the city limits, whether contracting with PUB or not, and whether it's at a target industry or not. Under targeted infrastructure, in support of new business development, we want to make sure that we use it for streets, for roads, for utilities, anything that we can put into our city or use our money to incentivize these companies, but at the same time, if they decide to get up and leave, we are at least going to have that infrastructure left in place, and we will have something for our money. We figure that if we put it into our own city, then we can never go wrong. Well, in the targeted infrastructure, even though that we're funding some of these areas, our money cannot be the sole source of the money. They also have to match dollar for dollar in the money that they're going to invest into infrastructure. And obviously, we cannot do anything that goes contrary to the legislation and that the 4A follows. Large project reserve is for that special projects that may require large investments by GBIC citizens, the city of Brownsville, or even PUB, so that we're thinking that one of these days we're going to have one of those projects and we're going to have to participate not only with the city of Brownsville but with the board of PUB and maybe other boards in town. Community-based job projects is basically for small business, small companies in Brownsville that create 20 jobs or less, for nonprofit organizations that indirectly or directly help create or retain or enhance jobs. Again, here, no one entity can take more than 50% of the amount budgeted. These are areas that we're targeting. Obviously, manufacturing of the maquiladora, the aerospace, aviation industries, the high-end business services like presently T-Mobile, information technology and security, telecommunication, logistics and transportation, local business retention and expansion, and also retail. In 2006, GBIC approved approximately 5 new companies. A total of 1,097 direct jobs were committed. An average wage per company was approximately $11 an hour plus the benefits, and over $20 million in new local payroll was created in 2006. In 2007, GBIC has approved projects for VITA, Hentenet, and the community-based projects. So far this year, we have approved projects for Organic Fuel Brownsville Limited, committed to 48 jobs at $18 an hour. T-Mobile, 700 jobs at $10.40 an hour, plus a 35% benefits package. They also are in the process of investing approximately $17 million into our community. We'll consider programs for teleperformance. We have another client that potentially is also in the same area. We're looking at it. They're committing to approximately 1,000 new jobs, which will be located at the old Albertson building, but that project is still under review. In 2007, we have 3 projects pending. Metal stampers, which would require a lot of power, approximately $20 million plus in investment, about $15 an hour a job. We have a Mexican company, Spice Company, that's looking to the areas, that's planning to invest about approximately $6 million and about 50 jobs at $13 an hour. And there's a project for over 1 million square feet retail development, lifestyle center with major tenants in there. We consider that approximately about a $100 million plus investment and over 500 jobs if that comes to if it happens. Moving forward, these are the areas that we support and are concentrating. First of all, our high school graduation rate has to increase drastically. We need to improve our job training options. We need to continue to decrease unemployment, which at this time is in single figures, lower than it's been in many years. We need to continue to improve our infrastructure, support new bridges, interstate status. We emphasize and support the PUB. We think it's absolutely necessary that the PUB, in some way, fashion, or another, build a coal-fired generation facility at the port, which is key. Continue to support and maybe expand the desal plant port, and definitely support the Weird Dam project. This is where I say that what many of these larger companies that have looked in our area one of the major reasons that we haven't been able to land them and attract them is precisely because of the lack of power. We have entertained customers that potentially could use more electrical power than the whole city of Brownsville uses, which would create an enormous amount of income for the public PUB. The Port of Brownsville is also something that we continue to focus and support, improve infrastructure out there, the ability so that we can attract heavy industry and that goes more related to the port and its business. We continue to support, obviously, the Brownsville Airport to increase our services, redevelop the air cargo services, develop a MRO facility, enhance the terminals and parking area, plus overall aesthetics of the area. The iTech campus is something that's been crucial area in our town for training. We need to improve its infrastructure still out there, enhance and provide electrical and fiber redundancy, and improve levees, obviously, in our area. Matamoros is a critical aspect of our region. I ask that our mayor continues to work with the mayors of Matamoros and the politicians across the border. They have 3 new industrial parks under development, which we already have, and continue to see the effect of those 3 new industrial parks. We believe at the GBIC and at BDC that PUB is a crucial part for the citizens of Brownsville. I thank you for the work that you're doing and work. I want to continue to communicate with this board and other boards of the city so that we can move our city forward in the right direction. I know it's quick, brief, but the intention here is to acknowledge, and like I say, it's important that we continue to communicate and all the different boards know what each one needs and requires to move forward, and how critical one of them is of the other. PUB is a critical board, not only to the city, but to other entities in Brownsville. With that, I thank you, Mr. Chairman, for your time.
Mr. President, I think there's a few questions.
Definitely, I was going to say.
Mr. Herrera, you mentioned, you brought up the Port of Brownsville and how GBIC tries to attract business over there, because the port being a vital part of our industry. But you usually deal with companies that want incentives from you in order to locate here. What is GBIC's stance on the Bay Bridge? Have you guys spoken on that?
On the which one?
On the Bay Bridge company that wants to locate to the port and bring 90
well,
to 100.
we haven't been approached by them as far as
they're not seeking incentives.
I understand that. We haven't been approached, but our way of thinking is we should never turn down any company that wants to settle in Brownsville. I think we should have limits on the amount of money that we spend in the different industries. Okay, we can't continue to focus on, in the past it was textile. Well, it can happen the same thing in communication like T-Mobile and all those other telecommunications. I think there's a lot of companies out at the port already that are shipwreckers or dismantlers, but by no means should we turn anybody down.
Mr.
Yes, sir.
Economic development is not just bringing jobs. It doesn't even have to be about bringing jobs. It can be about improving the quality of life for citizens, because that in itself is economic development, like the fine arts and stuff like that. Because people look at that and they want to relocate.
We want that.
Ourselves,
yes, sir.
Want that too, of course. But my colleague here went to the Port of Brownsville on behalf of the county judge in support of the Bay Bridge. Of course, I don't know all the bits and pieces of what's going on behind the scenes, or just what I read in the paper and been able to gather. Chris went over there to represent the county judge at that time in support of the Bay Bridge, and I went as mayor also to support the Bay Bridge. But I was a little baffled that I didn't see, and there might be a good reason for it, I was a little baffled that I didn't see county works. Because this is to bring jobs to Brownsville, be out there, and I was so baffled I didn't see the chamber or the BDC clamoring over there to say, hey, unless there's good reason, because maybe there is good reason to have a moratorium and all that. But I didn't see anybody going over there saying, raising the flag, saying, hey, we're looking at 90 to 100 jobs, we're looking at a pay scale of $10 to $40, which is good, above average. And we're looking at a company that's going to wait to invest $4 million in infrastructure to relocate here. I don't understand why.
Okay, I can't talk about the chamber.
No, I understand.
Yeah, and I can, but I can definitely talk about myself. One of the things that, honestly, the lack of communication there wasn't there. Obviously, I'm not sure this is the case, but I don't know if the port made an announcement of this company or not. The information didn't get to me in particular, but I agree. Regardless of the fact that we're going to incentivize them or not, we should always, everybody in our community that's considered to be crucial for attracting business should be out there supporting it. So I can say is that I will definitely talk to the person in charge of the president of the BDC and make sure that he does stay informed. And when these companies come into town, regardless of whether we're incentivizing or not, that we should be there supporting not only the citizens of Brownsville, the PUB, but the port itself, so they can attract those companies to the area.
Now, Mr. Venezuela, he said a good point. I hope Cameron Works and them do move up, because the other ship dismantlers, they're gonna need workers, and if the other one comes in here and vacuums a lot of workers out of that one, there could be a deficit of workers, welders, steel workers, so it's something that, I think you said it right on the button, they should, and maybe GBEC needs to alert them to start getting ready and get hundreds trained. And now that we have Commissioner Peter Zavaleta here, I invite you to the podium there. Mr. Zavaleta, if you wanted to make a comment on the Bay Bridge or anything, you're okay? Thank you, Pete. Go ahead.
Mr. Rivera, because you may be able to get more insight than we can. Because that's your cup of tea, because I don't know. And I trust y'all know what you're doing, because that's your expertise.
I appreciate that. You should.
And you're a good leader, so I know you're in good hands. But maybe if you could go back to your boards and alert them of this,
Definitely.
Maybe they can look into it and enlighten us. If there's something wrong, we need to know. But if there's something good, we also need to know, and as a community come together and create jobs.
Well, I'm sitting up here preaching communication, and yet there was a breakdown in our communication. I heard it for the first time at lunch. We had a meeting with, you were there, and they mentioned it, and the first thing that crossed my mind was the same thing. Wasn't even aware of it. We're all businessmen, we're all doing our own thing, but we committed to accepting these positions when they nominated us or appointed us, so we have to do what it takes to do the job right. But in regard to Mr. Chairman's point also, as far as the maybe lack of qualified personnel in the future, well, you're right, Cameron Works needs to be out there, the Vida people need to be out there, because they need to know what kind of people they need to be training and preparing for these future companies that are coming into town. So absolutely, and as a matter of fact, both of them are members of the BDC, so they should have been aware and should have been out there trying to find out what the potential of employees that they were going to be required. Completely agree.
Because what could happen, Mayor and President, is you could end up having 300 welders coming in from out of town to assist, and they're going to take the dollars out of here, back to their hometown. We want these citizens trained for those jobs if possible, if they do come in.
If the pool is here, but if not, what can we do to attract other people that live in other towns to come and live in our town also? I mean,
but also the spin-off that they'll create other jobs.
Oh, definitely. Every what is the factor? 3.5%, 3.5. Whatever they invest, they should get a 3.5 investment on the spin-off jobs.
I'll have my office fax you all if we know something, and maybe you can fax us if you know something. If they're going to have a meeting at the port, we'll alert you, or you alert us, maybe we can go together.
The key here is for us to realize that all the boards in town need to be communicating, because we're all essential to each other.
And I want to make a clear distinction. We're not there to tell the port what to do.
Of course not.
We're there to support them, to create jobs.
Yes.
They have to make the decision. They have all the decisions, they have all the information. But if they share it with us, or you share it with whatever you got, or we share it with everybody,
well,
we can make better informed decisions.
If you don't know what we lack to do our job better, then how are you going to help us? And if we don't tell you what we're working on that could potentially, you have to make the decision, then how are you going to work on that? So yes, and again, the most critical thing I think I can say here by standing up here is saying that we think that the PUB should be the producers and owners of power. I can see that in the future, not only will you be able to supply hopefully the whole valley and maybe even Mexico, but what better way of reducing our rate than if we're in charge of our own power? Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, sir. I appreciate it. Good presentation. Thank you.
That's Mr. Herrera from Greater Brownsville Incentive Corporation. Now we move on to item number 8, consideration and approval on the hiring of the external auditor, Mr. Leandro Garcia.
Yes, this item, request your consideration and approval of hiring an external auditor. This item was tabled at our last meeting. BPU staff continues to recommend the firm of Long & Chilton. We do, however, leave it at your discretion, and we're hopeful that tonight we will get some type of guidance from you. If you need any background on the firms, I'll be glad to provide that, but as mentioned, this item has been discussed before, and it's been tabled, and you can proceed tonight with it.
Well, we discussed this item last time. What do y'all want to do? We have a new board member, so.
I'm gonna make this my first motion. I've worked before with, Mr. Cascos at the college. I move that we accept Patillo, Brown and Hill, for the audit for 2007.
There's a motion on the floor. Any second motion to that?
I'll second it.
Okay, we have a motion by Dr. Zavaleta and a second by Mayor Amada for the external auditor of Patillo Brown, I'm sorry. All those in favor? Aye. Any against? Aye. Aye, okay. So we have 1 abstention, 1 nay, and 4 yeas. Motion passes for the new external auditor. Number 9, consideration and approval of authorizing management to prepare and update the Black and Beach Impact Fee Study, which will include looking at a 10-year plan and all associated projected costs, including interest. Mr. Brusiak.
Mr. Chairman, members of the board, this is an item that was before the city commission, was rescinded. Time has lapsed now. I think the mayor's directed from the city to proceed to update this plan, bring it back to the city commission. We'll have to start the time clock over, probably take about 120 days to get it finalized and approved. Just need some direction from this board that that's what we want to do, is do that. I think the commission and board or mayor want to see this brought back as quickly as possible, and need approval to proceed with our staff, and the next item would like to reach to finish this and bring it back.
Okay, there was another study being done by, what was his name? Snowden?
Yes.
Okay, that study could not be, economist. That study could not be completed, not because of anything I did or said, it's because the city was not willing to fund to finish the completion. Okay, I want to make that clear, because I know it came out in the paper that we didn't want to do it. It's not that, it's that they made it very clear they needed additional money, and this board voted not to provide the money because it was not up to PUB to fund that study, but it was up to the city. And the city, when I got in there, did not want to fund the study, additional funding. So that's why, but if the board wants to continue that study and you want to fund it, we'll wait for that, if that's what y'all want to do. But I don't think that's what we want to do here. So the impact fee study is coming back over here based on the city's direction. Now, during the campaign, I heard developers that they would like to see a 10-year study, which was not part of the plan the first go-around. I don't have any problems with that, and the board has no problems with that, but we need to give a direction.
Isn't a 10-year study going to be more costly? Isn't that going to drive the impact fee higher?
Likely, yeah.
Why would they want a 10-year study?
Well, I think the intent was to be more customers that could connect, but there's also more projects.
But I don't think it's going to work out that way. I think if you open it up to 10 years, that impact fee will go higher.
But not necessarily, it may not, we don't know.
Yeah.
We don't know.
We don't know. I mean,
You got a sewer plant capacity that the lifespan, if you take into account the projected growth, that it may slow down.
Right.
So it may,
Okay.
so let's look at, my recommendation is, let's give the developers what they want as far as a 10-year, and if we don't like it, we can always go back to the 5-year. Huh?
What, do they have to base a 5-year plan anymore?
No, we can't use the 5-year plan to, the 5-year capital improvement or land use into the 10-year. We gotta do a 10-year land use assumption and a 10-year capital improvement plan. Is that right, John?
Right.
And that, all this is dependent upon the city giving us the land use.
I was
And
gonna
we
say, we
develop
need
the
that.
CIP.
Yeah.
So, you know, if the city's willing to give us that, and work with us, work with the developers, I recommend that we do a 10-year.
As long as we can get some help from the city on the land use.
Okay, then we can make it subject to that if the city doesn't do it, then we can go back to the 5-year.
I'd like to clarify something, Mayor. I think you've said before that the other economist is really not a valid study because he's not a certified engineer. Could you explain that?
Okay, it was brought to our attention by the engineers themselves and by the economists themselves that his study would not be accepted by the state because he's not an engineer and he could not certify his study in order to adopt an impact fee. Is that right, John?
Yeah, I mean, I think that.
Under the law, you have to have a
Section 395.
engineer to certify the study that's used to base the impact fee. And since the man that was doing that study is an economist and not an engineer, you could not use that study for that purpose.
So it's a waste of money, really.
Well,
I think it started out.
I think it was.
If it's not acceptable, right?
The thing is that study could not be used to adopt, based on statute 395,
Right.
okay? And no engineer was gonna sign off on his study either
Right.
to make it,
It
acceptable.
could not be used for that purpose, it could be used for other purposes.
Weren't the past city commission,
They
told
were-
that this could not?
They were aware of that, but, you know, that's the past. What we're looking at here is that, first of all, the PUB board was not willing to pay the funding to continue the study, right?
Well, I understand that they wanted the PUB to contribute $16,000 or $20,000 to finish the study, and since we had already paid some $200 and some thousand dollars to do the study with the engineers, I think the board decided that we weren't going to fund that study because that was not part of what, that was a city that wanted to do it, and we weren't, the board decided they weren't willing to fund that
It wasn't
study.
gonna be valid anyway, right?
Well, that's true, but I mean, the point is here, the city was not willing to pay for the remainder of the study. You know, PUB ordered the study and felt they had no obligation to pay it. That's what it was. So that's why that study, it had nothing to do with me, it had to do with
You know, I thought that he was, I don't know, because I didn't see it when I was in the conditions he was hired under, or we never read the contract, but I thought he was supposed to provide supplementary information on economic impact of
That's right.
increasing fees,
But it got twisted.
of which he never produced
No.
that information. So I was kind of questioning why he would be paid for doing something, or not doing something he was hired to do. But I never thought that
That's right.
they were going to use his study to validate and all this. But I know that, and one thing that we've always done is we've stuck to the process, the legal process. I know we disagreed, and the community disagreed as far as what level it was, but one thing that we've agreed as a board is we never prevented the process from going
That's
forward.
right.
So
We followed.
I would move to, I think we can combine items number 9 and 10, right?
Yeah, the only thing on 10, I'd like to,
Do it separate.
yeah, and the only reason I'd like to bring it back to the board, I don't know what that cost is gonna be until we have a scoping meeting to see what their extent is, bring that back to the next meeting
So
on the cost.
your recommendation is to approve 9 and 2, or you were recommending 9 and tabling 10?
I just want authorization to negotiate for the amended contract on 10
Okay.
and bring it back, because I don't have a dollar amount yet until I know how the kayak or what we're gonna involve, so.
Let's make it perfectly clear, this is the board acting and this is the way it's chosen to do it. It's not the city, it's back here to PUB. PUB's giving direction as to how we're gonna do this, 5-year, 10-year, and hiring Black Beach Fish.
You're
Well,
gonna talk
you have
about
to-
what, 5
the
years
whole-
or 10 years?
In order to do the impact fee,
You got orders?
we have to do the study, that then is submitted to the kayak for their, and then it goes to the city commission. But we can't use the last study because that was done more than a year and a half ago, and the changes, I mean, things have changed. So you're either gonna do a 5-year study or a 10-year study, and then that whole process has to start again, just like we did the last time.
Yeah, but the city has now sent it to this board. Y'all make a decision.
But, I mean, yeah, we need to make it, well, we don't know whether we want a 5-year, we'd like to look at a 5-year frame or a 10-year frame. And part of that has to depend on the city commission, the land use study, you know, that kind of stuff. So, and also on Mr. Ruziak talking to Black and Beach about how much it would cost differential between the two of them.
I'm sure they love us.
Oh, I'm sure they would. Anyway, so I would make a motion then to authorize Mr. Ruziak to enter negotiations with Black and Beach.
Well, that's the other item, that's the next item.
John, so what you're saying is we have to start the whole process over. It would be another $200,000?
No, because a lot of the information is good, but the process has to be started over.
To comply with statute 395.
We didn't look at a 10-year, we looked at a 5-year, more projects, but a lot of the work's been done.
They can use a lot of the work that they already did. They just have to update it to a new, a new 5-year or 10-year.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
I just don't want to okay a 10-year, like, because the developers want. And I feel it's gonna be higher. Let's say it comes back higher, and then they say, well, wait a minute, let's go back to the old one. Then we gotta go back to the old one and do it all over.
Why,
I mean,
well, Mayor, why not authorize the general manager to find out what the difference would be between a 5- and 10-year study, assuming that the city will cooperate in the land use study like they did the last time, and then bring it to the board to determine whether or not you want to do a 5- or 10-year study. Can you do that?
I don't think there's a need for that, just authorize the general manager to proceed with this, and he's gonna take it to the kayak committee, aren't you not? We'll hear from the developers there.
I'd like to give Pat a
But should we call it? Yeah. You know, this is authorize the general manager, this is authorize the general manager to proceed with this, then take it to the city, find out about the land use assumption, they're gonna cooperate, take it to the kayak, hear from everybody, the city, PUB, the city, PUB's gonna have a representative there, and the developers, and then you decide, hey, we're gonna do 5 years with the team.
My question is this, I think we're putting the cart before the horse here. Why don't we find out what the city wants? Okay, they want a 5-year plan, then we'll authorize John to go ahead and find out what it's gonna cost. Okay, if they want a 10-year plan, then that's another story.
The city already gave a directive, it sent it up to consider a 10-year plan.
That's why,
Consider a 10-year plan.
what I want to say is that statute 395 says 10-year. It has nothing to do with giving the developers what they want. It's in the statute.
That's the first one.
Their biggest complaint was we didn't follow a 10-year plan. That's why we couldn't raise the impact fee, because it was done all wrong on a 5-year plan. So this 10-year plan is statute 395 states, it's there. It has to be a 10-year plan, not go on a 5-year plan. There's no negotiation with that. 395 says a 10-year plan.
I think
Up to a 10-year plan.
says that it can go up to 10 years, but you have to do at least a 5-year. And that's what we chose to do the last time.
That's right.
And I think they took into consideration some potential things for the 10-year, but it was not done on a 10-year basis.
We were in compliance in doing a 5-year. And I don't want to misunderstood here. We were in compliance with the 5-year plan. We did a 10-year plan when we did it in 1990. Because of that, we could go 5 years this go around, and we can still stick to 5 years. Now, we have an option here through the kayak, get there and hear from everybody, and let's see what they want. 10 years.
Mayor, you were PUB representative on the kayak committee. What did the kayak what was their recommendation, 5 or 10 years? What was?
5 years, at the time it was 5 years, everybody, at that time.
Yeah,
No, the kayak, when the kayak looked at this, they said 5 years.
The kayak sent it to the city for approval.
It was 5 years, John, correct me if I'm wrong, I mean, we all brought it back up to 5 years, but, you know, then it became an issue afterwards, you know, when they were there, they never asked for a 10-year that I remember, do you? No, they never asked, developers did that. After the recommendation was made, then they made it an issue of 10 years. So I'm willing to entertain 10 years. It was an issue. It can be a moot issue now, that we open the door, hey, we want to work with the developers, here's 10 years. We don't know what the outcome's going to be. And if they're unhappy after that, what more can we do? It may be cheaper. I don't know. We don't know.
I think it was because the idea was there was like 80 million plus.
$84 million.
$84 million that could be charged for in the impact fees, and to amortize that over a 5-year period. Say like in 5 years, you're gonna do all these projects over, $82 million. I don't think we've ever done $80 million over 5 years. So they would say that, let's amortize it over 10 years, but then you throw in other things into the equation where we don't know where the numbers are going to come up. I agree with you. I would move that we accept number 9, authorizing management to prepare and update the Black and Beach impact fee study to include a 10-year outlook.
Motion made by Mr. Villar, seconded by Mr. Valadez to approve authorizing management to prepare and update the Black and Beach impact fee study
For 10 years.
for 10 years.
Hopefully, whatever this is gonna stick.
It should be up to 10 years.
Up to 10 years.
Up to 10.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any against? The motion passes. Now, at this time, we've still got about 5 more items to go. I was looking around at the crowd, and there may be some concerned citizens here for public comment time. Who's first? How many are there? Can you raise your hands, please? Mr. Francisco Cifuentes.
Number 10, do they have a flight to catch or anything like that? Black and Beach?
Oh, they're not here.
They're not
They're not here? Okay.
I'm sorry. Is that okay?
The 10 goes along with number 9, consideration and approval to amend the contract.
You want to just get that one out of the way? Okay, let's one more, Mr. Cifuentes. Forgive us. Consideration and approval to amend the contract with Black and Beach to update the Brownsville Public Utilities Board impact fee study.
Move to approve.
Motion made by Mr. Villar to approve.
Second.
Second by Dr. Zavaleta. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any against? Motion passes. Mr. Francisco Cifuentes, please.
Good afternoon, President of the Board, Board members, Mr. Brusick, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Francisco Cifuentes. I'm a resident and a big taxpayer of the city of Brownsville and every other entity around here. I want to thank you for allowing me to speak. I think this is what it's all about. It's about serving the citizens of Brownsville. And being one of those citizens, I feel good that you allow me to speak at this time. Things have been happening in the last few weeks here in Brownsville, and I just come from a meeting with about 12 people, and these are individuals who are great taxpayers, and they're very, very angry at what's been going on, that we're going to be charged $2 because we register payers of PUB, and I have 2 dogs, and I take care of them, and I keep them guarded, and I take care of them. And if you PUB are going to allow this to happen, we don't know exactly if you're an independent body or you have to do what the city tells you to do. And I don't know if you need to agree or approve this charge of $2 extra. There are many people in the community do not want to pay these $2. It was imposed. We were promised that there was going to be no extra hidden taxes or any other charges, and we were put this load. We're already paying too much everywhere, and we're very tired of being imposed so much taxes. We don't understand at the present time if you're going to approve this charge or if it's going to be imposed directly on the taxpayers of PUB. We would like to let you know that we It's a great majority of the citizens of Brownsville that we disapprove this greatly. It hurts us. It is a big burden on us. And I want to thank you for the work that you have done in the past and that you're trying to work with the community. I've seen people waiting in line to make some arrangements for their payments of the bills, and you know that people are hurting very bad, and I congratulate the staff and everybody that they're trying to work with the people of Brownsville. One thing that we do not approve of is that if I come in at certain time during the day, if on the 12th my bill is, that day I'm supposed to pay it, after 3 or 4 p.m., if we put it on the box outside, it will not go until the next day, and I'm going to be charged extra money, even if I pay on the same day. And I think it should be possible that if we pay on the 12th, 5, 6, 7, 8 o'clock, we deposit that money here, and you put it in the next day, I don't think we should be charged so much money, those $12, $15, whatever it is. I want to thank you very much for allowing me this time. Thank you.
Okay, is there anybody else? No, there's nobody else in the crowd that would like to speak? Yes, sir, what there is, sir, there is. Go ahead. Former Port Commissioner Daniel Reyna. Solis. Daniel Reyna Solis.
Mayor, I want to congratulate you for nominating Dr. Zavaleta. I've known him almost all my life. We used to go to St. Mary's when we paid St. Joe when we paid 25 cents a month. But I'd like to say I don't like to contradict people, but Mayor, thank you for letting that last lady speak at your last meeting after you closed the speaking session. I think she came up with some wonderful ideas, and I publicly want to tell you right now, I appreciate you. And I have an extra bedroom. If you get a veterinarian from A&M that comes during the summer, he can stay there.
Okay.
Free of charge.
Thanks.
And as far as the subject on water, I don't know if you people are aware, but in 1998, the Port of Brownsville came almost to an agreement with General Electric, where they would take the bracket water and put in a generator plant, and the electricity was going to be sold to Matamoros, to Port of Brownsville, to Port Isabel, and the rest of it to PUB. They would take the bracket water that was cooling the motors and turn it into make a desalination plant out of it. General Electric was willing to pay 80% and the port 20%. But since it considered money, we had to have 5 votes. And like has happened to my good friend, Chairman Peter Zavaleta, the same people keep opposing it. They've been opposing progress in this city for the past 20 years, and we can't get rid of them. They got rid of the people that made progress. And I congratulate you people for your open-mindedness and, again, for choosing Zavaleta. And your chairman is doing a wonderful job, very open, and you give people a chance to speak. And as for the $2, I know it hurts some people. I'm on a fixed income, but I love dogs, and I don't want to see any dog that's strained or out there wanting food. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, sir. We now move on to, we're going to jump over, if you would go to number 14, consideration and approval to reduce the residential electric customer service charge. Ms. Mayor Amada.
Okay, this goes along with the plan that I was introducing some time back, the next item and this item, and also what we passed at the city. First of all, let's not mix up the PUB collection being the conduit to collect fees, the $2 fee. It's not a rate increase. It's got to be very clear. It's not a rate increase. All PUBs giving us the courtesy of the city of Brownsville to collect it for us, because it's the cheapest way, most effective way to get the money. And the $2 is not just about the dogs. It has to do with the fine arts and public safety and state mandates to help us with the problem of evacuation of owners and pets in case of a hurricane. So part of the plan was also to reduce $3 from the $450, what is it, $543. $550, okay. $3 from the customer service charge on the electrical side only. We cannot touch the water side, because the water side is always struggling, but I think we have a cushion here on the electrical to reduce it by $3. And that would help the ratepayers of Brownsville. This has nothing to do with the city of Brownsville, it has to do with PUB. It will help the ratepayers, so I'm asking this board to approve that. There's still $2.43 being left there to where it won't hurt.
Are you asking a reduction of $2 or $3? $3.
I'm asking for a reduction.
Because here it says $2.
I think the agenda item says $2.
But it was wrong, because I had asked for $3.
You did ask for $3, and that is an incorrect,
That's not supposed to be the item on the agenda.
And one of the things that I wanted to highlight for the board is I was going to seek some clarification and direction. When we started considering this, I started putting together a timeline. Because this is an ordinance change, we would need your guidance as to how we would proceed with this through the ordinance change process.
Customer charges will do an ordinance?
It is part of the ordinance, and what I'd like to get from you is a tentative, ballpark date that I can shoot for, because we will need to do hearings and do a little bit more of a formal internal study based on some legal guidance we're getting, is that we do perhaps need validation of some of our internal numbers through a consultant, more than likely the customer service consultant that assisted us back in 2005, and then put everything in motion so that we could comply with the charter requirements and go through the hearings and the commission approval, and of course any deliberations that surface from that. So at this time,
how long do you anticipate that could take?
We could probably do it within 90 days if we get a good timeline and get the legal folks involved in drafting the ordinance and the cost of service guys to revisit the.
Can we approve this contingent on the?
We'll approve this today, but the thing is, and he touched on it, but I want to explain a little bit. Because the $2 has nothing to do with the rate increases, nothing at all. This has to do with rate up or down, decrease or up. That's why it goes through an ordinance, because the utility code requires that. That's a little different, that's why. Right?
Correct.
So we can approve it today, and they can start the motion to have the ordinance drafted and the public hearings.
Does the city have to approve this?
The city commission does have to approve the ordinance change. Other aspects that we have to consider is the budget impact. We are in the budget process. Today we met with the finance committee in order to do the process and the meetings and the workshops we'll be undertaking in August. So there are some revenue implications here, and that's why we need to validate some of our internal numbers through a consultant, and so that we can formulate a good plan as to how we're going to accommodate any revenue shortfalls. So we don't want to just right now.
So we can approve this today, and then you can do the study and so forth.
Well, I mean, you can, but I think that it might be considered to be improperly done, because the rates have to be based on something that takes into consideration the bond ordinances and what you have to pay.
Well, we can move to contingent on
that
on approval by all
by the city.
Of the city.
And we want full disclosure on the revenue impact. We want to come up with some ideas to mitigate those shortfalls and have the finance committee and the full board participate in that.
If there are any other discussions,
Just real quick, I think there's a couple on here, and you know, when I saw them, I called Leandro and I asked him, you know, what's the dollar impact of this and the dollar impact of that? And I'm all for, you know, reducing rates. I think everybody is. I don't know anybody who's for increasing rates, you know. But this would be about $1.4 million, and there's something later that may be $1.7 million. You start adding these things up, it's $2 million, $3 million. So we have $3 million, and I'm not saying that that's gonna happen, but this is what's on the table right now. Last year, we approved salary increases that were necessary, and we did it again in 2005. And that's another $3 million or so. And then on the budgeting process, you know, according to what you're telling me, in early August, and matter of fact, we're trying to schedule the committee, of which Dr. Zavaleta, Mr. Guerra were there, that we wanted to have a workshop with the board way ahead of our board meeting so we can understand all those implications. And I just think that my own personal opinion is that we really should look at that budget, because the salary increases that we approved were not over a 12-month period. It was like for over 3 months. We only had 3 months worth of impact on that. And then the surpluses that we're showing in the budget, things are going to be kind of tight. So if we want to do these things, I think what's going to understand that revenues aren't going to increase, is that we're going to have to really tighten our belt and reduce some overhead and expenses. I'd like to see where beyond where you propose that we're going to do that, so that we can have a balanced budget and be in compliance with all the bond companies.
That's right, and the most recent cost of living was in March, and at that point, we briefed the board on the current year impact and the annualized impact, which is going to be about $100,000.
When we did that, we were already in the budget, and you brought it, and you found a way to absorb that cost, you know? And that was, now, this is nothing new, because we did talk about, for instance, the 5% discount. And again, I think you were there against it, okay? And this has been a year ago, so it's nothing new, you know? This can be approved today, and the numbers are there to support to do it, okay? And you're right, we can cut some way somewhere. You're right. That's what we're always working to, because of what we did when people were opposing, we were able to give all the employees a raise when nobody was doing what should have been done many times before we got here. And we made that raise happen for all the employees when they hadn't gotten a raise in 4 years. And we're doing the same thing with this right here. We're reducing, not all of it, but a portion of the service charge, okay, $3, not the $5.50, $3, and we're gonna make it work. Okay?
And I'm ready to give you different levels tonight.
Because I sat down with our finance director, and we looked at the numbers, and instead of eliminating, I could propose to eliminate the whole thing, but because on the electrical side, we felt that not on the water side, we felt that it couldn't be touched, because water is always hurting. And on the electrical side, there was a cushion for that.
Let me give you.
The thing is, you can't go below cost of service, or you have to recover it somewhere else. And what we'd like to look at, is there a way to make this revenue neutral, where we don't have a big shortfall during this process? But our consultant said what you're proposing could put us below cost of service, and that's an issue, that's a problem.
So you got 90 days to come up with, so it can be approved subject to, you come back in 90 days.
Right? Tell us what to do,
We'll employ the process.
figure a way to do it.
But
in 90 days, the city commission's got to approve it or disapprove it. By then, you should be able to come up with a plan.
That's what we'd like to show the board, offer some options on how to make this work. We're not impacted $3 million, and you get what you want.
Well, can I make a motion?
Yes.
I move that we accept this, pending the approval.
Subject to.
Yeah, subject to.
I'll second.
And the $3 reduction. I think we made that correction, down to $2.53.
That's right.
Subject to what? And I think that we get the cost recovery, what you're talking about, right?
I'd like to.
We're gonna look at that. We're gonna look at that before it goes to the city commission.
Yeah.
You will come back with those
And I'd like to have an option where
scenarios,
we
right?
can recover those costs through fees or other sources.
Or we cut someplace else, okay? That's fine. But
I just want to reiterate, make clear, I'm committed to making the financial numbers work.
But I think it's fair what he's asking for.
I'm just outlining the
I think it's fair
process.
what you're asking for. Let's make it subject to, okay? That he can recover the cost, okay? Because otherwise, this board also has the authority to make cuts along with your guidance. Is that okay? That's fair?
We have a board meeting on the 13th of August. We can have that information to us by that time.
We'll give a motion.
Motion by Dr. Zavaleta, seconded by Mr. Valadez, for consideration and approval to reduce the residential electric customer service charge subject to recovering costs. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any against?
Aye.
2 nays, 4 ayes, yeas. Motion passes. Did you want to say something?
No, that's
Okay.
it passed.
Now we move on to item number 15, consideration and approval to reduce the late penalty charge. Mayor Amada.
Okay, we brought this here a year ago. You remember that, Leandro?
Yes, I do.
We were looking at several things, even the billing. We were looking at the billing of how expensive the billing was, and you recall, Mr. Bruchak, and those things failed, okay? I still feel very strongly that the poor people are most affected on the 10%. I think it's very high. We're supposed to be nonprofits, okay? I think we can afford to reduce it by 5% as we proposed a year ago. And yes, it's going to impact the budget, but we're going to have to adjust, okay? And we're going to have to cut wherever we need to cut, whatever. But I think an average household, say, pays $200. That's $20 on late fees, is that right? I think we can afford to cut it by 5% to help, especially the poor, that continuously runs late sometimes because the check isn't timed with the payment of the bill. And we'll work with you on the budget.
And if I may, here again, this one is part of the great ordinance, so we would need to subject this to the similar process. Same process, commission, hearing, second, first reading.
That's it.
Consultant look at it. If I may, I'd like to brief you on the level of funding that we're talking about. Currently, on an annualized basis, we do bring in $3,362,000 in late penalty payments. Reducing it by 5% or half would put us in a 1.6 million revenue difference there. And of course, here again, we would need to find a way to make it somewhere else, make it up somewhere else.
Just the other thing on both of those items, it will impact the transfer to the city too.
10%. Yeah, they are part of the gross revenue calculation.
I'm familiar with that. But again, I'll repeat that PUB is here, like I said a year ago, like we all said here, some of us said here a year ago. PUB is owned by the community, okay? And if we're making that kind of money in the late fees, then we're in a good business. But I don't think we're here to hurt our community and take advantage of the poor, like sucking them dry with the late fee. I think
historically, I guess after studying,
we should depend on something else other than the late fee to be making money.
It's not intent to make money, but as a collection, as an AR, accounts receivable approach to making timely turnaround of cash. So
and 5% should be enough of incentive for people to pay on time, hopefully. We can always change this back. We can always come back and say, hey, it's not working. And we can't make it.
Yeah, as part of the study, we'll analyze after we implemented any bad debt, rate changes, if we're experiencing higher bad debt and longer times to collect, turn over the cash.
Yeah. And we've had a year, because this was on the table a year ago, we've had a year to come up with alternatives. Nobody's come up with an alternative. Nobody's come up with an alternative in a year's time. So I'd say, let's adopt it now. You come up with a better alternative, we'll look at it.
We'll prepare a timeline for you, and at our next August meeting, come back with another item, and then, as I mentioned, subject it to the commission process.
Thank you, Leandro.
Any more discussion?
No more discussion there?
I'd like to make a motion that we reduce the customer late payment penalty from 10% to 5%, subject to the numbers being there.
I'll second.
Motion made by Dr. Zavaleta, seconded by Mr. Valadez, to approve, to reduce the late penalty charge from 10% to 5%, subject to
Passing of the ordinance for the city.
Passing of the ordinance for the city. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any against?
Yay.
4-2, motion passes.
Thank you.
We now move on to item 11, consideration and approval to adopt a policy whereby utility disconnects are not done on Fridays or before holidays. Mayor Amara.
This is just because I know sometimes it can happen that we, especially when we have a holiday on a Monday, and we disconnect somebody's utilities on a Friday, and they can't get hooked up till Tuesday. I just want to make sure the policy's there to prevent that. Because normally, if you do cut somebody off, they'll come the next day and pay. Because sometimes it happens they just forgot, or maybe they have a little cash problem and it'll be solved in a week. But they're going to get the utilities back. That's what I'm saying. So let's just not make it to where all their meat's spoiled, their milk is rotten, because they don't have any juice there to keep the refrigerator running. So I would like to make sure that we have a policy that no disconnections on Friday.
We have that in place already. And we'll make sure
You already did?
Yes.
Oh, you already did?
So this is in place already.
Yes, it is.
I think they just did it too, right?
No, we've had it in place. It's been in place.
Okay, so
And
we-
holidays, we don't disconnect.
I wish you would say something.
Oh.
Hey, you can always tell me.
I've gotten calls from people that have been
Me too.
disconnected on Friday.
I have to.
Well,
As a matter of fact, I think I've called you to tell you if you could go please
Well, there are,
connect
and
some people on Friday
again,
night.
there are habitual late, that are broken payment.
Okay, but even if it's habitual, we need to make sure that it's not disconnected on Friday.
Right.
I mean, even if, some people are struggling through it, they're gonna come back and pay. I mean, all we're asking is for taking consideration weekends.
We won't,
Because, I mean, if the grocers are lost.
no, I understand.
That's
Very,
expensive.
very few we cut off on Friday.
Well, let's not make any.
Okay.
Okay, so now we go on to item number 12, consideration and approval to hire Dan Villegas as internal auditor. Mr. Chris Valadez.
On our external audit reports, we haven't had an internal auditor since Mr. Dan Villegas left for personal reasons, and I saw him at a Sam's Club the other day, and I asked him, we were catching up, and he said that all his affairs were in order now. And I jokingly said if he would be willing to come back, being that we hadn't been with an internal auditor since he left. I know that our external auditor recommends in his report says you guys need to have an internal auditor. That's one of the recommendations that they've made. And I used to use an internal auditor a lot, and then the internal auditor works for the board. I approached the auditing committee and I said, when are you guys going to hire somebody? It's been a year and a half, close to 2 years already, that nothing's been done on that. So I would like to see if we can go ahead and hire Mr. Dan Villegas back, and so we can, comply with the external auditor's recommendations, and so the board can have somebody in case they need, anything done, we can have it.
I think, Mr. Chairman, I think this is very critical for a healthy organization, especially as big as PUB. I think the city doesn't have that where the board has its own internal auditor. Hopefully, we'll correct that through charter, because I think that's helpful. We've seen in our time where problems have arisen, I think that could have been avoided, like the Brownsville Navigation District with the 21 million. They had an internal auditor, maybe they could have caught some of those things where people were signing checks without getting the co-signature and stuff like that, And we wouldn't be facing the problems that the taxpayers have to pay for, because there's no checks and balance there. Recently, the Convention Business Bureau, they're having problems, the issues there, that perhaps if they had an internal auditor there. I was at the Cameron Works, where the CEO there has either $500,000 or $1 million carte blanche to sign a check, and there's no internal auditor. That's scary as an elected official to see that happen in my community where it doesn't have that transparency and checks and balances there that I think that internal auditor brings, okay? We've been without an internal auditor for a long time, and I don't think it's good for us as a board. It's not good for management, it's not good for the employees to have somebody there helping us and guiding us. So I'm with you, colleague here, to give Villegas.
I'd like to make well, not a motion, I'm sorry, I'd like to make a comment. I have nothing against, Mr. Villegas, I don't know him. I think it's a good idea to have an internal auditor. The thing is, we've gone through other processes to hire an external auditor, interviewing people who might be interested in being the external auditor. Why aren't you looking at other options than just say Mr. Dan Villegas? He was on the board, he was working for PB before I came on the board, so I had no contact with Mr. Villegas, but I do. You can believe anything you read in the newspaper, that he had some agenda. He made some comments and he made some recommendations. When we were talking about the external auditors, Mayor, you were mentioning about, well, it'd be nice to get somebody different with a different outlook and perspective. This change from Long and Chilton to Portillo and Brown. Why aren't we considering that also? Instead of having a guy come in with already have preconceived notions of what he wants to do, first of all, let's advertise for an internal auditor. Check around and see who else is available.
First of all, I don't think the newspaper ever said anything that Mr. Villegas had an agenda.
Well, I don't say agenda, he had recommendations already.
Well, that's what an auditor does.
I understand, but I'm saying that those recommendations were not followed, so now he still has those ideas he wants to.
Well, that's because of management.
But I'm saying, what's wrong with checking who else is available?
Well, for 2 years, I've been asking the audit committee to get an auditor. They haven't moved at all.
And they advertise, and they look.
They never moved.
But I think the internal auditor should be objective.
Yeah.
I think he should be objective. And the internal auditor serves at the pleasure of the board.
Right.
Okay? And if you use him, it's a good tool. If you don't use him, well, that's your prerogative. And in my dealings with Mr. Villegas, I can tell you he was objective. I don't think he had an agenda to characterize it that way. It started off on the wrong foot. I don't have a problem with Mr. Villegas at all. He's a professional, he's objective, and he's not there to run the PUB or to pursue an agenda. He's just there to carry out the wishes of the board and make recommendations. It's up to the board to follow those recommendations or reject them, which did happen on this board. Many of his recommendations were rejected. So he served his purpose, and I think he was objective. He is familiar. The other side of the coin is, in this instance, it helps us that he's familiar with the system, because, like, for instance, when the checks were not being cashed and they were being put into files, that cost us a lot of money. With his help, we put internal control to solve some of those problems. A lot of those things came out because of his help, and it made PV better. So I will disagree with the characterization that he's got opportunities. It's up to the board to accept or reject his vote.
Mr. Burrell has the floor now.
Thank you. I think that hiring an external auditor is way overdue, and Mr. Valdez, you do have a point that the audit committee never acted on it, but that's our fault. I mean, because we are the audit committee. We have members of the board here that are audit committee. So it was up to us to report directly to the board. We hire and fire this auditor, the internal auditor. So it wasn't PUB staff or somebody else.
No,
it was our fault. We didn't act, it was our fault. You're right about that. But I remember discussing this with you last year, and I am all for hiring an auditor that's independent of the general manager, that reports to the board. Absolutely. I'm surprised that we don't have one, considering how much money that we're dealing with and the number of assets that are on our balance sheet. I do, though, believe that we should take this opportunity to sit down with our new CPA and to sit down and say, what is the job description of this person? And more importantly, what exactly is going to be expected of them? An internal auditor, we're not going to solve our problems just because we have a person. What's going to help us solving our problems is that we have a process. that this person, and with our CPA, says, this is where you face all of your risks. These are the items that you should, on a regular basis, audit and report to the board outside of any other items that the board requests from time to time. This is the format of your report, and those reports should be submitted on a schedule. You know, I do have some experience in that. Our company does have an external auditor. The board approves the schedule of the audits to make sure what they're doing is what we want them to do and what they look at. Plus, we have our CPA look at that schedule to make sure that we're on track, because it's a very, very difficult job. So once we know what we're looking for and we have our CPA involved with that, we can review the qualifications, and then we can start the interview process. I've never met Mr. Villegas. I have no opinion about him one way or the other, but I think, though, that with that information and that approved schedule and the qualifications, I would recommend the chairman form a committee, submit the proposals, we can ask for resumes, and we start an interview process. I just kind of find it a little bit hard, because I never worked with Mr. Villegas in the past, that we would just hire him without interviewing him, understanding, is he capable of meeting a schedule that the board agrees to? I don't even know what his qualifications are, and you're asking to make a decision on this very important position. So I would ask that the chairman form a committee to do that and give the committee a deadline in order to act and make a recommendation for board approval. That's just my opinion.
Mr. Chairman, I strongly recommend Mr. Villegas, and I think he will work fine with all board members. I think he has proven himself, and you're right, there's two board members that have not worked with him. I'd like to see them give him a chance to work with him, okay? I think his qualifications are beyond reproach. He was already working here, and we had no problems with him, that I know. He did his job. Now, we, like the general manager, we evaluate him every meeting without even saying something. He does his job, we keep him here. If we have a problem with him, we bring him to the board, and formally evaluate him, we get a new manager. The same thing with the internal auditor. It's long overdue. 2 years is long enough. We need an internal auditor. And work with him. I encourage all the board members to work with him and evaluate him. And if you have something particular that you find that he's not meeting the standard, then just do a formal evaluation and get another one. But I think we can no longer afford to continue without an internal auditor. And Leandro brought two case in points right now. Because if I had an internal auditor, that issue that he brought would be a moot issue. We would have the answers here as to on the reduction of the $3 and the 5%. The 5% we talked about a year ago. We had no internal auditor to help us with that. 5% we talked about a year ago. So based on that, I'm going to make the recommendation to hire Mr. Villegas. Hopefully the board will work with him, and if they have a problem, formally evaluate him, and we'll get another one. But give him a chance. He's willing to work with you all.
I'll second. Motion made by Mayor Amuada, seconded by Mr. Valadez, for approval to hire Dan Villegas as internal auditor. All those in favor?
Aye.
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 All those against?
Nay.
4-2, motion passes to hire Dan Villegas. Item number 13.
Let me qualify that at the same rate that is here before. Okay?
Okay.
Same rate.
As it says.
You amend your motion to hire him at the same salary that he was making when the last one was?
Yes, sir.
Second?
Yes.
And all those in favor?
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any against? Same ones, 4-2, motion passes to hire internal auditor at the same rate. We now move to item 13. It's an election of a board officer. Mayor Amuada now serves as ex officio member. Therefore, board will need to appoint a vice chairman to the board of directors.
In keeping with the rotation that everybody be moved up, I'm gonna go ahead and, I think the secretary is Mr. Al Villarreal right now. I'd like to nominate him for vice chair.
Motion made by Mr. Valadez, seconded by Mayor Amuada to nominate vice chair Al Villarreal. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any against? Motion passes unanimously.
I'd also like to nominate,
Yeah, I was gonna say,
we need it now, find a replacement for the secretary.
Okay, you're right, you're right.
But can we, because it's not on the agenda, or is it in?
Yeah, it's
Secretary board office?
so,
Yeah.
you don't serve it, I think it's, you're next, right? Yeah, I'll nominate Mr. Guerra to be secretary. Well,
Motion made by Mr. Valdez, seconded by Mayor Amata, to nominate Mr. Guerra as secretary of the Brownsville Public Utility Board. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any against? Motion passes.
On a maybe collateral or not collateral issue, Mayor, aren't you the board representative on the kayak? Yes. So, I mean, now we need a representative from the board on kayak.
It'll be next meeting.
It has to be on the next meeting, I know.
Next meeting. What about the consent agenda items, gentlemen? Any discussion
I
there?
have a problem with that, I mean, I'll make a motion to approve.
Okay, motion to approve.
What?
I gave you that table.
Oh, yes, that's right. On the Cupco deal,
Which number? 7?
number 7.
We jumped to that one.
Yeah,
right?
let's table that one because, it's going back to the city for reconsideration. There's in the scope tables, okay, thank you for reminding me.
Motion made.
To take, item number 8 out of the consent item.
Motion made. Motion made by
Seven.
Mr. Amata, seconded by Mr. Villar, to take item number 7 out and have it tabled. All those in agreement?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes to take item 7 and table it.
Now, I'll make a motion now to approve, all consent items. I'll second.
Motion made by Mayor Amata, seconded by Mr. Valadez, to pass all the consent agenda items with the exception of number 7. All those in favor?